These waves get huge. It's kind of like prehistoric territory, you know. There's as my girlfriend was pointing out, there's condors flying around here, you know, these prehistoric birds. And there's the lighting. You know, sunsets don't get better anywhere in the world, in my opinion. So, if you ever get the chance, you gotta hang out. Gotta come do it. I just can't help but stop at every single pull-off on this road because, I mean, look at it. This is, I mean, you know, this is the part where I get really excited, and then this is like, you know, they find this after I fall all the way down there to the bottom, right? So this actually is Big Sur, where Jack Kerouac was hanging out, and this is the restaurant here, Nepenthe, which is mentioned in the novel, but I just wanted you guys to check this out. You know, I mean, it's just astoundingly beautiful. Look at the mountains back here. God. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing really well. I just want to say thank you for all of the support and the wonderful feedback and recommendations from everybody, all the, you know, the patrons and the longtime fans, and yeah, just everything. Thank you so much for being you and reading books and supporting the channel. Stick around for the full review of Jack Kerouac's Big Sur. Good morning. Hello everybody, welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent. I missed you guys very much, and I'm happy to be back for a split second before jetting off somewhere else. I really need this coffee this morning. Yeah, as you can see, the entire room is a mess except for the bed, which means, of course, that there's a lady around. Jack Kerouac, maybe one of the most famous, maybe the most famous of the beat poets, known for On the Road, which he wrote at the age of 35, which catapulted him to fame and inscribed him in the literary canon forever and ever, putting him on the map of 20th century fiction along with quite a few others from those circles, with this approach that praised the first idea above all others and led to this kind of unedited, raw, sort of slightly slovenly style, which is wonderful to read. It's not quite stream of consciousness, but he was, you know, he was kicking around, you know, he was hanging out with William S. Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg and all these people before everybody, you know, before you knew about them. Out of the beat movement, if you want to call it that, there were, you know, there's this bevy of writers which we know and love to this day. I've never read On the Road. I've never read it. But I was driving through Big Sur, and I wanted something appropriate for the terrain because it's iconic. And my girlfriend had happened to pick up this one, which is a pretty short read, you know. It's about 180 pages, and with his style, you know, it goes quick. You can read through it quickly. So it went fast, and there were some parts that I really enjoyed, so let's get to it. First, an introduction to the setting, which is very important. This was written in 1962, or published in 1962. Big Sur is on the coast of California, in the US of A. It is a mountainous region filled with beaches and forests and cliffs, stretching from Carmel, California to San Simeon or thereabouts. It's a pretty long stretch on the California coast there. It was inhabited by several Native American tribes, and then it was discovered, or, you know, I think the Spanish were the first to see it. You know, I don't think they stopped there. There was an expedition of mariners led by Juan Cabrillo in 1542 who kind of passed by it and were like, oh, fuck that. But a colonization wasn't attempted until several hundred years later in the 1700s by Gaspar de Portola, who founded Monterrey with Father Junipero Serra. They called the region El País Grande del Sur, which is, the big country of the South. Shortened to El Sur Grande, the Big South, Big Sur, for a good reason. It was and is this vast, enormous, foreboding, overwhelmingly beautiful, prehistoric, ancient, gorgeous, in a word, astounding piece of the world. Big Sur is the tale of alter ego, Kerouac alter ego, Jack Duluth, hiding in a cabin near Bixby Bridge in the 1960s, drinking himself into a near blackout delirium, while he attempts to cope with the pressures of being a successful writer, basically, while attempting to cope with the pressures of fame. He didn't want all of it, he didn't want all of the success, but he wrote it and here it is. This is his solid attempt to get out of San Francisco and get his head on straight-ish. Obviously, things don't go very well, or we wouldn't have a novel. It helps to keep in mind that Kerouac definitely knows what he's talking about when he's discussing addiction and alcoholism in this novel, which are, those are some of the best parts of it, of course. Discussing alcoholism and self-loathing and just, this mind-boggling state of mind, this state of self-destruction. He died at the age of 47 in 1969, hemorrhaging internally from drinking, far from the vast expanse of Big Sur in fucking Florida. Any drinker knows how the process works. The first day you get drunk is okay. The morning after means a big head, but so you can kill that easy with a few more drinks and a meal. But if you pass up the meal and go on to another night's drunk and wake up to keep the toot going and continue on to the fourth day, there'll come one day when the drinks won't take effect because you're chemically overloaded and you'll have to sleep it off. But you can't sleep anymore, and it was alcohol itself that made you sleep those last 5 nights, so delirium sets in. Sleeplessness, sweat, trembling, a groaning feeling of weakness where your arms are numb and useless, nightmares of death. There's more about that later. The story of the Beat Generation, the Beat Poets, and Big Sur is one that collectively encompasses all sorts of interesting stories involving, sex, death, intoxication, murder, believe it or not, drugs, of course, that has had such an influence on literature and American culture that, it's been replicated and copied today to death, ad nauseum, to such a degree that you could pick up plenty of modern or postmodern novels. You could just walk into the bookstore, pick them up, and you could immediately just spot the influences like a little map. Big Sur attracted people associated with that community, such as Hunter S. Thompson, Henry Miller, who's actually mentioned in the book. They try and go and visit him, but they all get too drunk to go and visit him, and so they miss out on it, and he feels guilty. Richard Brautigan, who is one of mine and one of my dad's favorites, who wrote one of the strangest and funniest novels I've ever read, which was called The Confederate General from Big Sur. I almost reviewed that one instead, but next time. It spins a similar yarn of, eccentric debauchery and isolation out there in the middle of nowhere. Within the very first pages of Big Sur, you feel the heavy anxiety of death creeping up to the back of this guy, Jack Duluth. Immediately, he's feeling the wear and tear of the San Francisco lifestyle, and he's burnt out, and he's drunk, and he's exhausted, yet unable to stop, right? That's the thing. When you're that far into it, there's no going back. And for as much as these topics have been written to death, forgive the pun, written by a man with this kind of talent, it's still just as interesting and makes for a damn good read. And I look around the dismal cell. There's my hopeful rucksack all neatly packed with everything necessary to live in the woods, even unto the minutest first aid kit and diet details, and even a neat little sewing kit cleverly reinforced by my good mother, like extra safety pins, buttons, special sewing needles, little aluminum scissors, the hopeful medal of St. Christopher, even which she'd sewn on the flap, the survival kit all there, down to the last little survival sweater and handkerchief and tennis sneakers for hiking. But the rucksack sits hopefully in a strewn mess of bottles, all empty poor boys of white ports, butts, junk, whore. One fast move or I'm gone, I realize. Gone the way of the last 3 years of drunken hopelessness, which is a physical and spiritual and metaphysical hopelessness you can't learn in school, no matter how many books are on existentialism or pessimism you read, or how many jugs of vision-producing ayahuasca you drink, or mescaline take, or peyote goop up with. That feeling when you wake up with the delirium tremens, with the fear of eerie death, dripping from your ears like those special heavy cobweb spiders weave in hot countries. The feeling of being a bent-back mudman monster, groaning underground in hot, steaming mud, pulling a long, hot burden nowhere. The feeling of standing ankle-deep in hot, boiled pork blood. Of being up to your waist in a giant pan of greasy brown dishwater, not a trace of suds left in it. The face of yourself you see in the mirror with its expression of unbearable anguish. So hagged and awful with sorrow you can't even cry for a thing so ugly, so lost. No connection, whatever, with early perfection, and therefore nothing to connect with tears or anything. It's like William Seward Burroughs, stranger, suddenly appearing in your place in the mirror. Enough! One fast move or I'm gone. So I jump up, do my headstand first to pump blood back into the hairy brain, take a shower in the hall, new t-shirt and socks and underwear, pack vigorously, hoist the rucksack, and run out throwing the key on the desk and hit the cold street and walk so fast to the nearest little grocery store to buy 2 days of food, stick it in the rucksack, hike through lost alleys of Russian sorrow where bums sit head on knees in foggy doorways in the goopy, eerie city night. I've got to escape or die, and into the bus station, and a half hour into a bus seat. The bus says Monterey, and off we go, down the clean neon highway, and I sleep all the way, waking up amazed and well again, smelling sea air and the bus driver shaking me. End of the line, Monterey. And by God, it is Monterey, and I stand sleepy in the 2 a.m. seeing vague little fishing masts across the street from the bus driveway. Now all I've got to do to complete my escape is get 14 miles down the coast to the Raton Canyon Bridge and hike in. And it's great when he describes the sea as well. The sea roar is bad enough, except it keeps bashing and barking at me like a dog in the fog down there. Sometimes it booms the earth, but my God, where is the earth, and how can the sea be underground? It's because he's in total darkness. The only satisfaction I can glean from this roaring high horror of darkness is that the lamp wobbles huge dark shadows of its little rim stays on the overhanging bluff at the left of the road, because to the right, where the bushes are wiggling in the wind from the sea, there ain't no shadows, because there ain't no light can take hold. So I start my trudge, pack aback, just head down following my lamp spot, head down but eye suspiciously, peering a little up like a man in the presence of a dangerous idiot he doesn't want to annoy. It's clear that he was a poet because it's amazingly fun to read out loud. So, like you just heard, the style of writing is like listening to your very intelligent but completely inebriated friend telling you about his meditations and philosophies, relationships, which all go from bad to worse. Jack begins seeing the mistress of one of his friends, and while he manages to spend some time getting acquainted with the wilderness and taking time off from the city, it's about 3 weeks, and then he's already completely burnt out and bored and going crazy from it. He starts listening to the crashing waves of the ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and he begins writing poetry in the language of what, the words that he hears when he listens to the waves crashing on the rocks. All of which is actually included in this edition in the back. I get scared of the rising tide with its 15-foot waves, yet sit there, hoping in faith that Hawaii warn't sending no tidal wave I might miss, seeing in the dark coming from miles away as high as Grumas. One night I got scared anyway, so I sat on top of a 10-foot cliff at the foot of the big cliff, and the waves are going rare. He ran the gate rare, raw, roo, roar, crouch. The way waves sound, especially at night. The sea not speaking in sentences so much as in short lines. Which one? The one plushed. The same. Ah, boom. Writing down these fantastic inanities, actually, but yet I felt I had to do it because James Joyce wasn't going to do it now that he was dead, and figuring next year I'll write the different sound of the Atlantic crashing, say, on the shores of Cornwall, or the soft sound of the Indian Ocean crashing in the mouth of the Gange, maybe. And I just sat there listening to the waves talk all up and down the sand in different tones of voice. Kabloom, kerplash, ah, ropey otter, barnacled bee, crouch, are rope the angels and all the sea, and such. looking up occasionally to see rare cars crossing the high bridge and wondering what they'd see on this drear, foggy night if they knew a madman was sitting down there 1,000 feet below and all that windy fury in the dark, riding in the dark. Kerplash, shoo, God, brash. The headland looks like a long-nosed collie sleeping with his light on his nose as the ocean, obeying its accommodations of mine, crashes in rhythm which could and will intrude in thy rhythm of sand. Thought, big frigging shoulders on that son of a bitch. So that's sort of like what the poetry of the sea sounds like. The novel, like the poetry, resembles the terrain in which it was written. Enormous waves of Big Sur. Churning and crashing and, up and down, cascading, breaking against the rocks, swelling and culminating in this horrible fury. Sometimes light, sometimes heavy, sometimes playful, sometimes terrifying. These constant back and forth contradictions. It was definitely written by a Catholic, if you get my drift. The fog says, we are fog and we fly by dissolving like ephemera, and the leaves say, we are leaves and we jiggle in the wind. That's all. We come and go, grow and fall. Even the paper bags in my garbage pits say, we are man-transformed paper bags made out of wood pulp. We are kind of proud of being paper bags as long as that will be possible, but will be mush again with our sisters, the leaves, come rainy season. The tree stumps say, we are tree stumps torn out of the ground by men, sometimes by wind. We have big tendrils full of earth that drink out of the earth. Men say, we are men. We pull out tree stumps. We make paper bags. We think wise thoughts. We make lunch. We look around. We make a great effort to realize everything is the same, while the sand says, we are sand. We already know. And the sea says, we are always come and go, fall and plosh. The empty blue skies of space says, all this comes back to me, then goes again, and comes back again, then goes again. I don't care, it still belongs to me. The blue sky adds, don't call me eternity, call me God if you like. All of you talkers are in paradise. The leaf is paradise. The tree stump is paradise. The paper bag is paradise. The man is paradise. The sand is paradise. The sea is paradise. The man is paradise. The fog is paradise. Can you imagine a man with marvelous insights like these? Can you imagine a man with marvelous insights like these can go mad within a month? Because you must admit all those talking paper bags and sands were telling the truth. But I remember seeing a mess of leaves suddenly go skittering in the wind and into the creek, then floating rapidly down the creek towards the sea, making me feel a nameless horror, even then, of, oh my God, we're all being swept away to sea, no matter what we know or say or do. And a bird who was on a crooked branch is suddenly gone without my even hearing him. Facing all the Pacific fury flashing on rocks that rise like gloomy sea shroud towers out of the cove, the Bing Bang Cove with its seas booming inside caves and slapping out, the cities of seaweed floating up and down you can even see in their dark leer in the phosphorescent sea beach nightlight. That first night I sit there and all I know as I look up is the kitchen light is on the cliff to the right, where somebody's just built a cabin overlooking all the horrible Sur. Somebody's up there having a mild and tender supper, that's all I know. The light from the cabin kitchen up there go out like a little weak lighthouse beacon and end suspended 1,000 feet over the crashing shore. Who would build a cabin up there but some bored but hoary old adventurous architect maybe got sick of running for Congress, and one of these days a big Orson Welles tragedy with screaming ghosts, a woman in a white nightgown will go flying down that sheer cliff. You see, the funny thing is that Orson Welles actually did buy a cabin in Big Sur when he was traveling down there on a road trip with Rita Hayworth, his wife, in 1944. They bought this cabin, they didn't spend a single night in it, and eventually it was turned into this restaurant with this beautiful view, which is called Nepenthe. It's mentioned in the book, and I stopped there. It's still there. You can go there. And I had the most overpriced, terrible meal of my life with the greatest view I've ever seen. When it's $8.50 for a fucking beer, you are paying for the view. From the baths, we go to Nepenthe, which is a beautiful cliff-top restaurant with vast outdoor patio with excellent food. No. Excellent waiters? Sure. And management? Probably not. Good drinks, chess tables, chairs, and tables just to sit in the sun and look at the grand coast. We go to Nepenthe, which is a beautiful cliff-top restaurant with vast outdoor patio, yes. With excellent food, no. Excellent waiters, maybe. And management, probably not. Good drinks, no. Chess tables, not anymore. Chairs and tables just to sit in the sun and look at the grand coast. Yeah, it's a beautiful view, but you're paying for it. Times have changed. He's visited from people in the city on this journey, despite the fact that he went out there to be alone. And it's clear he's becoming entirely jaded with the whole beat label, as if he had any answers for the young kids who are reading and rereading his words, finding sense where he didn't have any to begin with, and finding answers in when all he was writing were questions. Because after all, the poor kid actually believes that there's something noble and idealistic and kind about all this beat stuff, and I'm supposed to be the king of the beatniks according to the newspapers. So, but at the same time, I'm sick and tired of all the endless enthusiasms of new young kids trying to know me and pour out all their lives into me so that I'll jump up and down and say, yes, 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 that's right, which I can't do anymore. My reason for coming to Big Sur for the summer being precisely to get away from that sort of thing. Like those pathetic 5 high school kids who came to my door in Long Island one night wearing jackets that said Dharma Bums on them, expecting me to be 25 years old, according to a mistake on a book jacket, and here I am old enough to be their father. But no hip, swinging young jazzy Ron wants to dig everything. Go to the beach, run and romp and sing, talk, write tunes, write stories, climb mountains, go hiking, see everything, do everything with everybody. But having one last quart of port with me, I agree to follow him to the beach. He also makes friends with a local donkey named Alf, who just kind of like hangs around eating apples. So I angle back down to the home canyon and down the path past the cabin and out to the sea, where the mule is on the seashore, nibbling under that 1,000-foot bridge, or sometimes just staring at me with big brown Garden of Eden eyes. The mule being a pet of one of the families who have a cabin in the canyon, and it, as I say Alf by name, just wanders from one end of the canyon where the corral fence stops him to the wild seashore where the sea stops him, but a strange Gauguin-esque mule when you first see him, leaving his black dung on the perfect white sand, an immortal and primordial mule owning a whole valley. I even finally later find out where Alf sleeps, which is like a sacred grove of trees in that dreaming meadow of heather. So I feed Alf the last of my apples, which he receives with a big far-off teeth inside his soft hairy muzzle, never biting, just muffing up my apple from my outstretched palm and chomping away sadly, turning to scratch his behind against a tree with a big erotic motion that gets worse and worse till finally he's standing there with a erectile dong that would scare the whore of Babylon, let alone me. So again, he starts his relationship with this mistress of his friend, which is doomed from the very beginning. This woman named Billy with this kid named Elliot, who's an absolute terror. And it will, of course, as everything's just sort of leading up to it, it will culminate in one horrible evening with all of his friends stuck out in this cabin where he can't sleep. You know, this drunken cabin fever madness, which just reaches this deafening pitch. But interestingly enough, as he writes, in the beginning, it's just like every other relationship. Because a new love affair always gives hope. The irrational mortal loneliness is always crowned. That thing I saw, that horror of snake emptiness when I took the deep iodine death breath on the Big Sur beach, is now justified and hosannah'd and raised up like a sacred urn to heaven in the mere fact of the taking off of clothes and clashing wits and bodies in the inexpressibly nervously sad delight of love. Don't let no old fogies tell you otherwise, and on top of that, nobody in the world even ever dares to write the true story of love. It's awful. We're stuck with a 50% incomplete literature and drama, lying mouth to mouth, kiss to kiss in the pillow dark, loin to loin in unbelievable surrendering sweetness so distant from all our mental fearful abstractions it makes you wonder why men have termed God antisexual somehow. Oh man, it's great. It's just a beautiful meditation on what it means to be human, if you want to call it that, you know. What it means to be a person, a success, a failure, a writer, and then not to, you know, abandon yourself to the craft and then pull a Rimbaud and abandon the craft. To try and be free. It's this attempt to be free. This desperate, bleeding, screaming, yearning attempt to be free. And, you know, to be intoxicated with life through intoxication. To escape addiction through addiction. But then finding at the end of all of it only this warm, breezy, horrifying loneliness, ironically in one of the most beautiful places on earth. I felt completely nude of all poor protective devices like thoughts about life, or meditations under trees, and the ultimate, and all that shit. In fact, the other pitiful devices of making supper or saying, what do I do next, chop wood? I see myself as just doomed, pitiful, An awful realization that I have been fooling myself all my life, thinking there was a next thing to do to keep the show going, and actually I'm just a sick clown and so is everybody else. All of it, pitiful as it is, not even really any kind of common sense, animate effort to ease the soul in this horrible, sinister condition of mortal hopelessness, so I'm left sitting there in the sand after having almost fainted and stare at the waves, which suddenly are not waves at all, with, I guess, what must have been the goopiest downtrodden expression God, if he exists, must have ever seen in his movie career. Eh vache, I hate to write. All my tricks laid bare, even the realization that they're laid bare itself, laid bare as a lot of bunk. The sea around me seems to yell, "Go to your desire, don't hang around here," for after all, the sea must be like God. God isn't asking us to mope and suffer and sit by the sea in the cold at midnight for the sake of writing down useless sounds. He gave us the tools of self-reliance, after all, to make it straight through bad life mortality, towards paradise, maybe, I hope. But some miserables like me don't even know it. When it comes to us, we're amazed. Life is a gate, a way, a path to paradise, maybe. Anyway, why not live for fun and joy and love, or some sort of girl by a fireside? Why not go to your desire and laugh? But I ran away from that seashore and never came back again, without that secret knowledge, that it didn't want me there. That I was a fool to sit there in the first place. The sea has its waves, the man has his fireside. Period. He likes to say period a lot. So it's all very sad and beautiful, maybe as Jim would say. Sort of reminds me of one big Hank Williams song. So that's all I got for you today. Subscribe if you liked it. And leave some comments. Let me know what you're reading. Follow me on Twitter and now Instagram. Plenty of great stuff coming up. Hope you guys are doing well. And always remember that life is far, far too damn short to read bullshit. So, thanks a bunch for watching, guys. Talk to you soon. Get that coffee.